Hello, welcome to the Nigerian Investor Podcast, TNI for short. This is the unofficial podcast of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. I am your host, Mudi and Aye, and my co-host, Mr. Aye for short. TNI podcast is dedicated to stimulating a renewed enthusiasm among the general public in Nigeria with regards to investing on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Ultimately, the goal of TNI is to see many young Nigerians from all walks of life, both at home and in the diasporas, actively participating in the activities of the Nigerian stock market. Before we go further, we would like to place on record a disclaimer. TNI podcast is solely for the purpose of education and not a replacement for professional financial advice. Let's begin. Hello, welcome back, TNI listeners, to another episode of the Nigerian Investors Podcast. Today's episode is episode 4, and it's going to be a very detailed episode because we're going to be talking about a very important aspect of investing in Nigeria. You know, when you buy shares or you sell shares on the floor of the Nigerian stock market, someone has to keep record of those activities. When company wants to reward their investors with dividend, someone has to come in and make the payment. When company wants to host investors to annual general meeting or emergency general meeting, someone has to organize it. When someone wants to gift out his or her shares to friends or family, or maybe to will it to the children, someone has to come in to do that job. When someone wants to change from the old way of doing things, I mean, back then, when you buy shares on the floor of the market, share certificate is given in form of hard copy. But today, everything is done electronically, and you can view and access it from the comfort of your home. So if you happen to be someone who used to work in the old ways, you still have your share certificates with you, you can convert them to electronic form, and that's what we call dematerialization. Someone has to do this job as well. All these activities that I just mentioned, they are done by a group of body we refer to as the registrars. The registrar, they represent companies that are listed on the floor of the stock market, and they take care of all these activities that I just mentioned. They work on a day-to-day basis because every day shares are sold and shares are bought on the floor of the market. They keep record of all these. They also extend their services to non-listed company on the floor of the Nigeria stock market, but we are not dwelling on that. The focus of this podcast is on the stock market and how to become an investor. Some of these registrars include what we call DRIP. It stands for Dividend Reinvestment Plan. DRIPs work by you activating the plan with the registrar. When they pay the dividend, instead of sending the dividend to your bank account, they reinvest the money in the company that just paid you the dividend. There are about 18 registrars representing all the companies that are listed on the floor of the Nigeria stock market. For you to be able to benefit for the DRIP plan or to get your dividend sent to your bank account electronically, you have to mandate the registrar to do that. Visit their website, download the e-mandate form, fill the form out. They're going to ask you questions like the company stock which you own, you indicate it on the form, your bank account details, such as account number, the BVN, the date you open the account, your signature, a passport photograph, and you can scan it and send it back to the registrar through their email, or you can take it to your bank and leave it with the customer relation officer. They will take care of it. Some of these registrars have also imbibed technology, meaning you can do it from the comfort of your home. Just visit their website and you fill the form online and you supply all the information that they will require and you send it. This e-mandate is done once. After you finish doing that, you'll be eligible to receive your dividend as at when it is paid on a yearly basis, or if it is every 6 months, as the case may be for some companies. let's just go over the functions of the registrar once more before we start mentioning all the different registrars. The first function of a registrar is data management service. They keep a daily up-to-date record of stock movement on the floor of the Nigerian stock market. Organization of general meeting, annual general meeting, emergency general meeting. They also disseminate information to investors about the meetings. They also perform probate services. Probate services is when you are trying to will your stock, your assets to your offspring or family members, or when you are transferring it to someone else, they will be in charge of doing this on your behalf. They also have the function of dematerialization, converting your paper share certificate to electronic form, which you can access from anywhere in the world. They are the ones that deals with corporate action. That is the dividend payment. They distribute the dividend. And recently, some of them have started the DRIP. That is the dividend reinvestment plan. That being said, let's look at the 18 registrars that are licensed to represent companies listed on the floor of the Nigerian stock market. These 18 registrars, they have license from the Security and Exchange Commission to be able to provide these services to these companies that are listed on the floor of the Nigerian stock market. I'm going to call the registrars in alphabetical orders. The first registrar is African Prudential Registrars. This registrar happens to be the only registrar company in Nigeria that is listed on the floor of the Nigeria stock market, which is very cool. The next one is Apple Capital Registrar. And then we have Atlas Registrar Limited, Cardinal Stone Registrars Limited, Carnation Registrar Limited, Centurion Registrar Limited, Cordros Registrars Limited, Coronation Registrars Limited, Crescent Registrars Limited, Datamass Registrars Limited. Others include First Registrars and Investor Services, Greenwich Registrars and Data Solution Limited, Lighthouse Registrars Limited, Meristem Registrars and Probate Services, PAC Registrars and Investor Services Limited, PACE Registrars Limited, Unity Registrars Limited, and finally, Veritas Registrars Limited. Veritas represent 4 companies listed on the floor of the Nigerian stock market, which include Dangote Sugar, May and Baker Pharmaceutical Company, Guinness Nigeria PLC, and Zenith Bank. If you own any share in any of these 4 companies that I just mentioned, it is Veritas Registrars Limited that you would complete your e-mandate with, and they'll be the one in charge of paying you your dividends. The next registrar is Apple Capital Registrars. They represent international breweries, Lasaco Assurance, Linkage Assurance, Unicel Interlinked Company, Mutual Benefit Assurance, NEM Insurance, Pharmadeco, Red Star Express Limited, Sky Aviation Handling Company, the Initiate PLC. If you have any of these companies in your portfolio, you should be dealing with Apple Capital Registrars in matters regarding to dividends payments as well as any other matter. The next registrar is African Prudential Registrars. They represent the following companies that are listed on the floor of the Nigerian stock market: African Prudential themselves, Boa Cement and Boa Food, that is BUA Cement and BUA Foods, CAP, Champion Breweries, Jais Bank, Living Trust Mortgage Bank, Transcorp Hotels PLC, Transcorp Power PLC, Transcorp PLC, UHCN, United Bank for Africa, UBA, United Capital, and VDF Group. If you own any stock in these companies that I just mentioned, you have to deal with African Prudential in matters that are related to those stocks. The next registrar is Unity Registrars. They represent just 2 companies, Unity Bank and Veritas Capital Assurance PLC. And the next one is Atlas Registrars Limited. They represent these companies: Flour Mill of Nigeria Limited, Northern Nigerian Flour Mills PLC, and Honeywell Flour Mill PLC. So this registrar, Atlas, all they do is just represent all the flour mills on the floor of the Nigerian stock market. Interesting. That's nice. All right. Let's move on to the next registrar. We're going to look at Coronation Registrars. They represent ICO Insurance PLC, Arade Holdings PLC. By the way, Arade Holding will be listed on the floor of the Nigeria stock market next week. Precisely, it's going to be listed on the 14th of October, 2024. We have Access Holding Company. We have Red Star Express, McNichols Consolidated PLC, Caverton, Dangote Cement, MTN Nigerian Communication PLC, and Airtel Africa PLC. These are the companies that are represented by Coronation. The next registrar we're going to look at is Crescent Registrars. They represent Afro Media, Cordv Business Solution PLC, and Cutis PLC. Also, we have Meristram Registrars and Probate Services represent Naimet Pharmaceutical, Custodian and Allied Investment PLC, Feedsin Healthcare, Baja Paints, Corn Oil, eTransact International PLC, FTN Cocoa Processor PLC, Mutual Benefit Assurance, Regency Alliance Insurance, ROT Briscoe Nigeria, Smart Products Nigeria Limited, Sovereign Trust Insurance, Tantalizer PLC, Thomas Wyatt PLC, and lastly, Vitafoam Nigerian PLC. Carnation Registrars represent the following companies: African Alliance Insurance Company PLC, Multiverse Mining and Exploration PLC, Omatech Venture PLC, and Universal Insurance PLC. For Centurion Registrars Limited, they represent just Union Deacon Salt Company. Cordros Registrars, they have Capital Hotel PLC, CWG PLC, C&I Leasing PLC, and Mikio Industries under their belt. The next registrar is Data Max Registrars, represent Guaranteed Trust Holding Company, AXA Mansard Insurance Company, and Seplat Energy Solution. Next registrar here is First Registrars. First registrar represent ABC Transport PLC, ASO Savings and Loan PLC, Cadbury Nigeria PLC, Shams PLC, Fidelity Bank PLC, IMG, Len Africa, MROS Oil Nigerian PLC, Nigerian Breweries, Oando PLC, Presco PLC, PZ Coursing Nigeria PLC, Prestige Assurance PLC, Rack Unity Petroleum, Stanbic Bank IBTC, and UPDC Real Estate Investment Trust. For Greenish Registrars and Data Services, represent Nestle PLC, EcoBank, Wema Bank, Unilever, Sheila Rams PLC, John Oates, University Press PLC, Entana PLC, and EcoCorp PLC. Last but not the least, I'm going to mention Cardinal Stone Registrars and the companies that they represent. Beta Glass PLC, FCMB Group PLC, Guinea Insurance PLC, Lafarge Africa PLC, otherwise known as WAPCO or Elephant Cement, Livestock Feeds PLC, Morrison Industries PLC, NACO Avians PLC, Nigeria Police Force Microfinance Bank PLC, Okomu Oil Palm PLC, Premium Paint PLC, Royal Exchange PLC, Total Energies, and Transnationwide Express PLC. For clarification purpose, this list is not exhaustive. I have not been able to mention all the companies that each of these registrars represents. One of the reasons why it is not that exhaustive is because companies that are listed on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange are permitted to switch registrars. This makes it possible for some companies to move from one registrar to another, though it is not a very common occurrence, but it does happen. Ella Lake, for instance, changed their registrar from Cardinal Stone to Cordros Registrars with effect from 30th September 2024. In order to present this episode, we tried to ensure that the information contained here is as accurate as possible as it can be. My fellow host, Aye, has been working tirelessly in the background to ensure the accuracy and authenticity of the information in this episode. Aye, you want to say one or two words before we conclude this episode?
Yes, thank you, Mudi, for that one. Yeah, it's a good one. I think this was a very exciting episode and very informative episode, getting investors to learn more about how they can access their dividends. Hopefully, we will be able to teach you more about dividends, the various nuances involved in getting your dividends with respect to the dates where you can expect these dividends, which ones are interim dividends, which ones we call final dividends, ex-dividend dates, qualification dates, and payment dates, and all the rest in subsequent episodes. So it's been great having you, Mudi. It's been great in today's podcast, engaging with all of you, teaching you a few things about the Nigerian stock market, and we hope that you've learned a few things. I know I have learned a few things too as well. So thank you, Mudi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Aye, for your contribution. Very much appreciated. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nigerian Investors Podcast. We hope in this episode you've learned something very valuable that you can use in your day-to-day investing life. We also want to encourage you to share our episodes on all social media platforms. Share with friends or family. Never can tell whose life will be changing positively. Our social media handles can be found at the show note below this episode. We also have a website where you can listen to our episode free of charge. For those who don't have subscription to podcast hosting sites like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music, you can listen to our podcast on YouTube free of charge. We have an email address. You can send us an email if you have any question, any query or contribution. And if you also want to be interviewed, you can also reach out to us. Email address tnipodcaster@gmail.com. Continue to share and like and spread the news to all friends and loved ones. Thank you. TNI Podcast is produced by Aye and Mudi. Until we meet again, have a nice one. Bye.